All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Wonderful Being podcast. My name is Catherine Barnes, and I am really, really excited today because I have three people with me here who are involved in one of the San Diego Fringe shows that I am most excited about because it is called On the Spectrum. And anybody who follows my podcast knows that I'm also on the spectrum. So I'm really excited to be supporting autistic folks creating theater. We've got Blaize Berry. We've got Marybeth Berry, and we've got Tyrie Rowell, who is the director. Hey, welcome to the show. And first of all, I'll just open it up for anyone who wants to. Tell me about this show.
Marybeth?
Okay. Well, thank you so much for having us. We're really excited to be here. And basically, the show was born out of our experience, Blaize and mine, our experience of Blaize being diagnosed with autism at 12, if I'm right, 11 or 12. And because I am a theater artist, I'm a theater professor, and Blaize has found that his outlet is also in theater, it felt relatively organic to say, well, let's create a piece about our experience navigating what it's like to be on the spectrum, as well as what it's like to be a parent of a child who is on the spectrum. And so that's where it came from. And I can let Blaize or Tyrie take the next stab at what it's about and that sort of thing. And
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
So,
and then go ahead, I'm sorry.
ahead.
Yeah, and what I've said is, and I've told folks is, even some of the folks at my graduate community, is that, you know, this is real. It's as real as it can get. You can't get any realer than this. And this is truly something I have thoroughly enjoyed. I've known Marybeth and Blaize for feels like over 15, 16 years now. I knew him when he was like, I think it was like 1.5. So to see him grow into this young man that he is truly been an inspiration to be a part of this project.
Awesome. I love it. So it's kind of all in the family here.
yes.
So Blaize, how did you get started with theater? Like what was your first theater experience?
Okay, so my first theater experience was with mom, and it was, what was it? Was it Peter Pan and Wendy? I think it was. Or no, was it? Yeah, it was. It was Peter Pan and Wendy, and yeah, it was kind of just before getting involved with theater, I had a lot of stage fright. I mean, I still do have some of that, but it's easier to overcome now. But yeah, I just kind of, they were down one person, someone didn't show up or something like that. And so I was like, I'll do it. Sure. And then, yeah. And then I've been doing theater pretty much ever since, what was that, like 11? No,
That was
that
it,
like
2017.
so that was
Yeah.
Yeah,
10.
you were like 10, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he jumped in and we were shocked because he was always super averse. Like you said, he had stage fright. So he would like play around for years, and Tyrie knows because he's been there, he'd play around for years and get up on the stage, and you know, our students would be like, hey, Blaize, and the minute that would happen, he would like book off the stage. He wouldn't wanted no part of being the center of attention. So when we agreed to do it, we were like, okay, it was a lost boy. I think he had like 4 lines. We were like, okay. And he got on that stage, and Tyrie can attest to this. We were like, he was better than the majority of our students. He was just so naturally like in the moment and actively listening, and all the things that, you know, I work on with my students. You've got to actively listen. You need to make sure you're still in the scene and not dozing. He was there. And so from there, he did another show with us because we did 2 children's shows that year. We did House at Food Corner as well. So we were in that. But then he went into, we're from Columbia, South Carolina, and we found a youth theater program there. And he went, and I'm gonna brag, he went and auditioned, and the very first thing he auditioned for was Aladdin Jr., and he got Aladdin. So yay. And but from that, I know we were so proud, but from that, he's continued to do more youth theater. He's done, you got to, actually during the pandemic, they did a virtual screening at Columbia Children's Theater of The Outsiders, and he got to play Pony Boy. And so that was really exciting for him. He's done a lot of musical theater, and then he's done, you know, I gosh, I don't know, he's done competitions, he's done a lot of stuff, he's done a lot of stuff.
Yes, I don't know, it was a competition thing.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah.
South Carolina Speech and Theater Festival, so he's done a lot of theater, and it was, and we found it to be the outlet that he most enjoys and gravitates towards.
Awesome. Very nice. Yeah, no, I've found it to be a similar thing for me as well. So I can definitely relate there. So here's my next question. And this is kind of for everybody. What is it like to be working on a show, like as members of a family? And then also what's it like to be directing a family in a show? And I'll let you guys go in whatever order you want to talk in.
Can I
Yeah,
go
you
first?
can take that.
Okay.
You can start.
So I think the one issue that I had when we were doing this show, there was a lot of conflict between me and Mom, and that, at least for me, that kind of seeped into the process of creating this show. And yeah, so we had a lot of sit down, we had to talk and like figure out what was going on so we can continue actually working on the show. Yeah.
I think, yeah, he's right. I mean, I think that it's hard to delineate between, okay, we're doing a show and this is this, the show must go on, we're on the stage. Yes, it's about our lives, and that's the thing, it's about our life, but it doesn't matter, it's still a show. So we're trying to, separate that and keep that level of professionalism. And yeah, there's been struggles when you get mother, son, and we're not happy with each other, and just, not wanting to work together, and not being able to, where, in any other setting with other actors, you just put aside your differences and you keep going. It is infinitely harder to do that when you are when the dynamic is just so close and so tight, and the topic is so personal. It's not like we're doing some other show. No, this is still dialogue that we've actually had before, or emotions that are still very real, and resentment, animosity, frustration, love, compassion, all of those things that we have are there on a daily basis. So if there's conflict, it makes it fun, and then Tyrie has to step in and mediate.
Which it feels like I've done quite a bit of mediation. But it's true that everything you're saying, that's why it's as real as it can get. There is no other way to create, theater in this way, because these are personal stories. They're just harder to navigate because we want that to be authentic. We want people to realize that, hey, these are real emotions, as Marybeth stated, all the things that are surrounding this, that are within us, and we're trying to show that to you, but also help you understand that we understand this is theater, and we have to show you a performance. So it's been very challenging. I mean, even before we left, we were, to come to San Diego, we were challenging ourselves a little bit on a few things, and had to kind of go, okay, we got a show that we have to do in like 3 days. So, but there's truly this, and sometimes that's even difficult for me, because I am a part of this family. They're part of my family. And so navigating, being a part of a family, but sometimes family has its own, struggles and things of that nature. And sometimes you have to tell people, listen, enough's enough. Let's get it over and done with, and that's where we are. So I think we've come a long way since 2020, when we first did this show, especially because we did it in the middle of the pandemic. We were virtual with this show, but it's evolved over time. We talked about that recently, that doing something that was virtual is totally different from putting on something that's in person, because a lot has changed. We've evolved. Even their conversations have evolved. What has happened has evolved. So, the pandemic brought us closer. What did that do to them as a family, And so we wanted to make sure we still got that experience out there for our viewers.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So go ahead.
I was gonna say, yeah, I think that's the other thing is that when we proposed this show, it was back in 2019. It was right after he got diagnosed. So the idea and the experience was completely different when we kind of crafted it and did it in 2020 from 2019. And then of course the pandemic hit. So then we did it virtually. So it was a completely different show. And now to revisit it in 2022, it's literally in so many ways, a completely different show. I mean, we have music. I mean, we have a friend, I have a friend that wrote songs for it. So now we have songs with it. We didn't have songs with it in 2020. Now we have music to help express what we were feeling. But the dynamics between us has changed because we've lived with the diagnosis. I mean, the diagnosis was always there, even though we didn't know it, right? It was always there, but we've had 3 years at this point, right? Is my math right? Because I teach theater. That 3 years. So, and knowing the diagnosis, and then, and so what does that mean 3 years later versus what it meant 6 months later or a year later? And it's changed. And of course, he's become a teenager. When we did this show, we were looking back at the video and we did this show and he was shorter than me. Now he's taller than me. So there's a lot of nuances in that.
Yeah, you've really lived with the show, and it sounds like it's really changed.
Yes.
And I will also say that the answer to that last question, that really validates why I do solo theater. But anyways, so you mentioned getting diagnosed in 2019. So Blaize, I wanted to ask you about that. What was that? Because I just went through that diagnosis process myself. What was that like for you?
Yeah, okay. So when I didn't like the entire diagnosis process, like having to go to like the doctors and doing like these weird tests, like, and actually in our original show, we addressed a lot of how I got very irritated with going to the doctors and doing all these tests because I felt like they were stupid. Because in my mind they are stupid, but I do understand now that they aren't dumb. But yeah, so there were a lot of times that I got very annoyed with the process. I felt as though I didn't need to go through this because it was a lot of like, I remember one of the tests that I was given, they like told me to, how did they tell me to do? They told me to take like these blocks and like arrange them in a certain way. I don't even fully remember. But it was just a lot of weird activities that it was just really annoying to do because it was constantly just more testing, and it was very irritating. And I know I'm saying irritating a lot, but that's how it really was. It was very, very annoying. So
yeah, it's annoying. And when you finally got that, you finally got the diagnosis and they finally said, hey, congratulations, you're autistic. How was that for you?
For me, I was not exactly surprised. I was more like, oh, okay. I was like, I don't know how that makes me any different than everybody else, but I was like, all right, okay. And then, but then like they started like I started doing some of my own research, which I kind of actually ties into our show currently, but I started like, looking up online, Googling stuff, because and I started like looking up certain things and certain like symptoms of autism and that type of stuff. And I sort of like for myself started connecting the dots of, okay, that's why this is happening. That's why this is happening. And like the main symptom that I see that that before I was diagnosed I considered weird was my stimming, and that was I always felt like that was just a weird thing I did. I didn't feel like it really had an explanation. And then I started like, when after I was diagnosed, I finally realized that there were other people who did, who do this kind of the same stuff. And I'm trying to find words here. Hold on. Yeah.
Less alone for sure. Like it's, and having those explanations, like I know exactly what you're talking about because I stim too. I'll show you my favorite stim is talking to myself, and it's really embarrassing because like I'll be doing it and I won't realize I'm doing it, and people are like, are you okay in there? You know? And so once I knew, oh yeah, this is just a thing that other autistic people do, for me, it was a big relief. And it sounds like you got a little bit of that as well.
Yeah, it was relieving. But I will say, once I found out I was autistic, at the time, I think it was like going into middle school or like halfway through middle school. And people are very nice. And there was a lot of not bullying, but rather making fun of autism, like making fun of it. And not exactly directing it towards one person, but just making fun of the condition, I guess. And as when I was diagnosed, I got scared because I was like, what if they find out that I'm autistic? Will they start bullying me? And so yeah, that was kind of something that I was really stressed out about throughout middle school, which didn't help because middle school was already stressful enough.
Yeah.
So.
I teach middle school, so I know all about that. But you know, it's interesting because you just talked about that fear, right, of people finding out. But right now I'm sitting here interviewing you and your mom and your director. So you're really out and proud now about being autistic.
Yeah, I mean, for me, if you're okay, like if you're gonna judge me because I have a condition that I can't control, then I don't want you in my life anyways. Like, it doesn't really affect me if you're not a great person and you don't want to talk to me or you want to make fun of me because I have a certain condition, then I don't want you as my friend anyways because I don't like being around mean people that make fun of other people because of something they can't control. And I don't walk around saying, hey everybody, I'm autistic. I don't say that. But if it is brought up and I am in a relationship, I will bring it up. Like I will sometimes say to people like, listen, if sometimes you may need to tell me what you're trying to say because I won't be able to pick up on it. And that is probably, yeah. I am open about it though. I'm much more open than I was beginning coronavirus time. Yeah. So.
Yeah, and
awesome.
I had even said this to them. I think it was maybe a couple of weeks ago. You know, I said to them, how people make fun of people, who feel like they're different. But I said, what makes you think that the folks that are out here are not on some sort of spectrum themselves? I mean, we all have something that that we're excited about, and we do things. I may be driving. I think Marybeth, I think Chris Sachs, which is her husband, he asked the question. I think I was talking to myself in the booth the other day, and he's like, "Is he talking to himself?" Yeah, I was like, "I'm talking to myself." It's the only way I can get this thing done. Stupid thing. So it's just I think that everybody is at some point a part of the spectrum, and we are no different than anyone else. Everybody is the same. So I think that people just kind of get that in their notion. Oh, they're autistic. I got to treat them differently.
No. Yeah, that's really awesome. I love it. And so you mentioned that this show, it sounds like the idea maybe came before the pandemic, but then the show itself happened for the first time in the pandemic. So like, is this a pandemic creation? Is that when you both were really, or all three of you were really in the thick of working on it?
Yes, at that point, yes, because there was a whole plan that we were actually going to go to Ireland to work on it, and then the pandemic hit, and we didn't go to Ireland to workshop it, and so everything changed, and that's when we brought Tyrie on board during the pandemic, because of course, one, we've worked together before, two, we trust him, and three, he was local, and so we couldn't do anything because we couldn't travel anymore. But I think Tyrie brought such an interesting perspective because he was able, because he knows us so well and knows all about both of us, and then can also stand back and be constructive. I think that's useful. But he's also able to take our sensitive material and protect it in a way that made us feel safe, so that we could share and we could go to places we needed to go to emotionally and about this topic and connection wise. So yeah, I mean, it was born out of, the whole piece was created during the pandemic. And now, like I said, it's when we sat down a few months ago saying, okay, because of course we have other commitments, other jobs and everything, and we knew we were going to come back. But then we were finally like, okay, now our plates are clear. We need to focus on this. It was like, okay, wait, let's look at our script. What are we doing? This doesn't apply anymore. This is, or not that this doesn't apply, but it's changed. It's not the same. He doesn't feel the same as he did when it first started. I feel differently now. And, so that is how it morphed and changed. And how do we bring it? And then the challenge of saying, okay, well, it's always been viewed through the lens of the pandemic and virtual. So now how do we, initially it was supposed to be live, but that got pushed aside. So how do we view it now and say, okay, we're putting this out in front of people?
Is this going to be the first live performance?
I think so. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. And so, okay, next question. I feel kind of honored and excited that you all came all the way from South Carolina to San Diego to do this show live. So how did that come about?
So that came about because when I came up with the idea and I talked to Blaize about it, I will say that my institution, or this institution Tyrie and I both are affiliated with at University of South Carolina, are very supportive of our external work and our creative work and things like that. So there's a lot of grant opportunities. So when I came up with the idea and had proposed it, I went ahead and I proposed it to numerous Fringe festivals, and San Diego is one of them. Boulder International Fringe, which is the one we did virtually. And then we actually were accepted to the Capitol Fringe in DC. But then of course, COVID hit. And this was all supposed to happen in 2020. So we were supposed to hit San Diego, Capitol, and Boulder. And, San Diego canceled, Capitol did, Boulder didn't cancel, they did their virtual one. And so with San Diego, they were just, they were like, when you're ready, come. And so we were like, okay. And so we were able to, through getting accepted to the festivals, getting funding to be able to come. And so this is sort of like, like I said, it was a grant that I was awarded in 2020 that is now finally being used, that was able to be extended and everything. And that was nice. And I talk about that actually in the show a little bit about the grant. I won't give it away, but there was a little bit of challenge regarding the grants, which usually there's not, but there was a little bit.
Just a little sneak peek.
Yeah.
I love it. Okay, 2 more questions. First one I have to ask because I'm a musician, and you mentioned that like the show was written and then later you added the music. So tell me about that.
So I have a dear friend of mine, Alex Lefevre, and he is a former, well, he's a professor at Coastal Carolina University now in Conway, South Carolina. But I met Alex before Blaize was even an apple in my eye kind of thing. Like I met him in I think 2006. And I had a theater company in Lynchburg, Virginia, and I had gone to New York and hired like my core group of actors for the summer stock company that I had. And Alex was one of them. And Alex and I have kept in touch throughout the years. Alex ended up, doing music directing on Broadway.
Oh, wow.
And so but of course the pandemic hit him too, and Broadway shut down. So he was looking, what was he going to do? And he made the choice to get into education, and he and his husband moved to Conway, and we we've always connected, but we reconnected in a way because he's there. And we were like, what can we work on? So he and I are actually still working on a show. Like he's writing the music and I'm writing the book. But in the process, when we were looking at the show and, on the spectrum, we're like, okay, what are we going to talk about? I was like, I went to Alex, I was like, what if we had some music? Like, what if we did this? I mean, Blaize is musical theater trained. I'm musical theater trained. Like, why not add some music to it? And so he was like, okay, that's a tall order, but okay. And so he said, okay, well, so we had to meet with him. We shared, we shared the old version of the show that he was able to see. We showed him, the script, and he asked a ton of questions. He's like, if I'm going to do this, I need to know what you're feeling, what it is that, you've been through so that I can help you navigate this musically. And I think he did a brilliant job. The songs are just stunning. They really are. And they literally were born out of our personal feelings and our experiences. So they're just so, they're so authentic from us. Musically, not like he wrote them, but it fits the lyrics that he created based on what we told him. It all just, I don't know, when we heard his song and my song, and then we have a duet that we do together, they all just encompass everything that we've been through. And so it's a nice touch, and it changes it for us, which is nice, and it kept it fresh. So it didn't feel like we were trying to reinvent the show we did in 2020. It felt like having music allowed us to, go at it and look at it through a different lens, which allowed everything else to feel fresh too.
Awesome. I love it. Blaize, do you have a favorite song in the show?
Well, I have my favorite song, which is my song. It is, I think that Alex did a great job with my song. He's very, very talented for sure. Yeah, I don't want to spoil too much, but he in the song, it connects to me very well, and I feel like it can connect to a lot of people. On the spectrum or not on the spectrum. I think it's more of just a song that can connect to the loners or the outcasts of kids my age. So yeah.
I love it.
They're just these songs are touching, should be touching to anyone that's listening. Even though I'm not a musical theater person, I'm like, when she said music, I was like, I don't even have hair to pull. I was like, but these songs are just like it's just like, oh, I'm feeling it, and then just to hear the what they're saying is just, you can see it within them. I don't see any difference. I think that what they're saying truly is a compliment to what they've been through.
Awesome. I love it. Okay. And here is my final question, and I'm going to ask it to everybody. So what is your advice for someone who might want to create a show of their own? And then what's your advice for anybody who's directing? And if you have anything to add, especially about like working with your own family or working with the family, I would love to hear that advice.
You want to start?
I can.
Go for it.
Okay, so advice. Take things one at a time. Don't like throw yourself into the deep end. Like, don't if, like, for example, if you're writing a show and you want, hold on. Can you go next? Give me a second.
Okay.
Give me a second.
Okay, so I have actually, my MFA was specializing in solo performance, and like you said, because it's just so much easier to just be the one person. So I've done a number of solo pieces, and I think when it comes to devising work, it is when you're devising work, it has to be something that you care about, something you're invested in, something that matters to you, something you believe needs to be told, and you believe you want to speak about, because once you jump into this deep end of the pool, like you're in it, and it's like, you better be fully committed, you better, because if you're not, if you're on the fence, if you're like, I don't know if I want to do it, then you're not passionate about it. But find something that you are really passionate about, a story that you, because here, I guess my thought is, if you believe that it should be told, like if you feel like within your bones that this is something you need to share, then there's an audience for it, because because it will connect. It will connect. But if it's only a surface level, like, oh, well, that's interesting, move on. Find the thing that just grips your soul, because that's the thing that people are going to want to hear about. I'm done. We can go to Tyrie, but we're still coming back to you.
No. Tyrie, can you go?
Sure. I think that with creating work, it's what Marybeth just said. It's hard. You have to be truly in it to win it. But I think that what you have to start doing is, if you want to truly write something and that you're going to share it, then I would say just write it. Don't try to worry about what you're going to say, how you're going to say, how it's going to fit into what you're trying to put in. Just write it. Just start writing. And I guarantee you that once you start writing, you'll have several scenes just from that, and then you can go back and flesh those things out. I talked to Marybeth, and we were talking at the beginning of the semester. I'm writing my own piece, and that's what I'm doing now. Just writing things out, just writing out my life experiences, and trying to figure out, and then I'll go back later to do that. Now, directing my own piece, no, you definitely don't want to do the directing of your own piece. And I think that's why they brought me in, as she said earlier. It's just a different perspective, and to concretely go, but even then, I think everyone has the ability to create something. Whatever you want to do and how you want to do it and how you get there, it's up to you.
Love it.
So now it's up to Blaize.
Now it's a Blaize.
Yes, you stop.
The last tidbit.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so connecting to kind of what they both said, with when writing a piece that you are very, very passionate about, you do have to be all the way in it, but you really have to, when writing a piece, you have to dig deep. Like, you can't just do little surface stuff. You have to go really deep into how you really feel. In this show, I'm gonna spoil a little bit, but not much. In this show, there's a portion where I stim, and in our original piece, that was very, very difficult for me to get to that point, to show people what stimming is and what stimming is for me. And it's very difficult, and I'm sure it's going to be very difficult, these next couple shows that we're going to do, to show people how, or what I do when I stim. And because it's not socially acceptable, like, it's not, oh, okay, it's you're like, you're like, and you're twirling your hair, okay. No, it's like you're doing something that looks odd and like doesn't look, oh, that looks kind of weird, like, and you really have to, anyways, getting back on track, you have to really just dig deep into what you're talking about, because the show won't be as emotionally impactful if it's just on the surface and you're just telling a story. It has to be like, you have to show, not tell. Like, it has to be, yeah, yeah.
I love it. And I really, really appreciate your bravery and your willingness to be that vulnerable and share your stim on a stage in front of everybody. That's, you know, I bet you that there's going to be some other autistic people in the audience, kids and adults, who are going to see that and just really resonate and really appreciate it. So thank you. And thank you for sharing that here today. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, okay, well, the last thing I want to know is, where can folks see the show? And I'll make sure to post a link to tickets and all that important stuff. But do you guys open today?
Yes, open today at 6 o'clock, right? 6 o'clock.
6 o'clock. Are you guys in the Hitchcock or in the Centro?
Centro.
Okay, so today, 6 p.m., Centro Cultural de la Raza. You know what? I don't know. I tell you what, I'm going to make sure this is on YouTube today. I'll share it on all the socials and all that stuff. That's going to be tomorrow, Saturday, that I get that done, but I'll make sure that it's on YouTube today so I can say, come see the show today, because I will be there. I'm so excited. I'm so excited you guys came all the way from South Carolina here to San Diego, and everybody go see On the Spectrum at San Diego Fringe. It's going to be awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.